Hello, Pickled Onion Knight here, and welcome to a video that I have decided to call Turbografx, the worst of both worlds. Now, that is a bit of a clickbaity title, I grant you, but I am going to talk at length for, I don't know how long, I've got stuff written down, about the European Turbografx. That is the system I'm focusing on at the moment. And yeah, so I'm going to go on about that, and then towards the end of the video there'll be an unboxing. So I will see you after the title card. Right, so let's get on. So two things I'm going to explain before I start. I'm in the usual room and the cat is asleep right here, so at some point there may be some cat nonsense appears in front of the camera. Don't worry, I'll edit it out. Maybe save it for a future bloopers reel. And number two, I am recording this quite late, about an hour later than I intended. Yeah, it's not going to make a difference to the content, but you know, it means I'm a little bit more tired than I normally would be, because what happened was Hot Fuzz was on the telly, and I don't like to miss one of the Cornetto films when it's on, even though I've seen them hundreds of times. I don't do film reviews on this channel, but you know, if I did, they would score highly. Right, on with this. So, the European Turbografx. Let me just explain briefly my personal circumstances with acquiring this, and then I'll go into some of the technicalities that you might need to be aware of. Okay, so basically what happened was I had some PayPal money burning a hole in my pocket. I also had some Amazon credit floating around. So what I was basically thinking was, because one of the consoles I do want to pick up at some point is a Nintendo 3DS. Picture there for reference. But I have a horrible feeling that the model that I want is about to be getting discontinued, and that is the black one with the blue trim. I don't want the Pikachu one. I don't want the Pokemon Stadium one. I don't want an Animal Crossing one. I want the first one. So they're £130, and I thought, well, I can buy one of them on Amazon with the vouchers I had, and then maybe go on eBay, look at a few games. So basically, I was looking at spending about £130. So I went on eBay, and I'm clicking through, and I'm looking at some games that I might want to buy, might want to pick up alongside it. And every now and then, when I go on eBay, I type in things that I just want to have a look at, stuff that I like to keep an eye on, stuff to see what's going up and down. And I just so happened to click on, I can't even remember what it was, just consoles for sale, like just general consoles, and then saw what was about. And this came up, this Turbografx, which I'll show you in a minute. And basically, it was sat there, a Turbografx in the box with a game, with all the stuff to play it, and it was a buy it now £140 plus postage and packing. But what was unusual was that it was all best offer as well. So basically, what I did is I went on there, I had a look, and I kept it on my watch list for a couple of days. I didn't spend any of the money I had. I just kept it on the watch list for a couple of days, seeing what was happening. And it was still there after a couple of days. So what I basically did is I made the guy an offer. And the offer was basically minus the postage and packing. So say the postage and packing was £6.50 or £7. I can't remember what it was. Say it was £6.50, £7. I basically made him an offer of a total of £140. And he accepted it, and I now have a Turbografx PAL model, or European model, I should say, just to clarify. It's not... See, this is the complicated thing. Now, let me just explain. When I did my previous video on the Turbografx 16, or rather, I did it on the PC Engine, not really the Turbografx 16, although I did mention that. I did a video probably about a year and a bit ago on the Collect Emulator Void series on the PC Engine. because at the time I felt that was, if you wanted a PC engine or a TurboGrafx, a PC engine was probably easier to acquire. Basically because there's so many of them. I mean, it was a very popular system in Japan. Lots of them got imported around the world. It would be an easier system to acquire, and the games are cheaper. But I also claimed in that video that I claimed that this console that I've just bought probably didn't exist, because I'd never actually seen one. I'd heard about it, of course. I mean, people have heard about these things, but very few people have ever seen one. But the trouble with owning a European Turbografx, and this is basically the issue, it is genuinely the worst of both worlds. And like I say, I mean, this console shouldn't exist. I should say, I should revise that up to this console shouldn't exist, because it's just going to make my life difficult. So it does exist, but with some major caveats. That's all I'll say. So basically the backstory is this. NEC wanted to bring the TurboGrafx 16 to Europe, or the PC engine. But what seems to have happened is the US launch was so dismal for them, they basically decided not to. But they'd already started converting the NEC machines to work with a PAL output. And this is the issue. The issue seems to be that although the systems were actually then released in Europe later on, there weren't any games released in Europe, so all the games for this were basically going to be rebadged. The original idea is they were going to take the US TurboGrafx 16 turbo chips or HuCard games and just basically rebrand them as TurboGrafx European games. And not even changing them, not doing any PAL optimization, not even converting them to PAL at all, just keeping the NTSC games. Which is basically what's happened, although none of them were actually released. Now, it is difficult to get information on this. It is very difficult to get information on the TurboGrafx in Europe. There's not many people doing stuff about it, and even Wikipedia and the usual suspects that you would go to for information are pretty much stumped about it. There's no real mention of any of it in Europe. But I'll basically it worked like this. The system was released in the UK and Germany and Spain and possibly Italy. Nobody seems to be really sure on that either. Nobody even seems to be really sure that it came out in the UK at all. A lot of them are European versions, supposedly. And I'll come on to that in a minute as well. So it's basically a US Turbografx in a light grey case that has been modified to output a PAL signal. I'll show you that in a bit. But it plays all the US games, and this is one of the first major problems, is the US games are obviously much more expensive than the Japanese equivalents. So that is a hassle, and these things are region locked. I don't know why that was a thing, but it was. They're region locked, so basically a TurboGrafx or a TurboGrafx 16 won't play a PC Engine game, and a PC Engine obviously won't play a TurboGrafx game. The other problem is the accessories it takes are all the US versions. So if I wanted to buy a TurboTap, for instance, I would have to buy the US version. I couldn't buy the much cheaper PC Engine version because it's a different size socket. But it works with the Turbo CD, the US version, that is. So again, the expensive version. And it will work with the Turbo EverDrive. But apparently not with the new Super CD System 3, which is a real disappointment because I was seriously considering getting one. So yeah, if you have one of these European models, it will not work with the Super CD System 3, which is another thing that's on. I don't know if Crix actually makes it, but it's on his website. But I know he makes the Turbo EverDrive. This fella Crix. So the other thing is there is a French version of the Turbografx, which I can't find. I can't find one on eBay. I can't find any mention of it other than a couple of people on different forums. And they seem to think that the French version was in fact based around the PC Engine core graphics, which is the black one with the blue writing. So that is actually a Japanese, that plays Japanese games. And that has been modded to output a PAL CCAM video signal, which is a different version of the standard PAL signal that's used in the rest of Europe. PAL CCAM is only used in France, and I think certain French colonies as well, so there may be some West African countries also use PAL CCAM. And not that it's going to make a difference to a modern television, but it might make a difference if you're trying to play it on a CRT. If you can find one of these French models, then I suppose have at it. But that basically has all the same problems as what I've just outlined. Is that while it will play PC Engine games, which is the cheaper version, and uses PC Engine accessories, it still doesn't work with the Super CD System 3, apparently, or at least according to the website, it will not work with any European Turbografx models, the Super CD System 3. So that is a disappointment. So I don't think there's much else to say on this, other than let's get on with the unboxing. And I'll show you the box before I do that, because it's over here. So before I get on to the unboxing, I'll just show you the box. Now, if you're an American or a Canadian or anyone in North America that owns a Turbografx, you might be going, well, that is a really small box. How do they fit everything in there? And I suppose we'll come to that, won't we? So I'll just show you everything that's in here. I suppose I'll turn the camera up so that I can get everything in shot. Right, so where are we? Let's get the top of the box open. Now, bearing in mind that this is not complete, this is I can go through it and tell you everything that is actually missing from this, because it is not complete as new. And in fact, I'm opening it upside down, which I don't want to do. Or do I? Am I? Yes, I think I am. Yeah, I've opened it upside down. So, et voila. Let's just turn that around. So, let's get the polystyrene out. So, move that away. And basically, this is pretty much what's come inside the box. Well, actually, that's something that doesn't actually come with it originally. So you get the pad, and as you can see, the graphics are different from the US version. It's this red line and blue line. Although, yeah, although you'll notice there the moulding for the pad, if I hold that up to the camera, still has the 16 on it. So they've obviously used the same moulding for the US pad, just put a different sticker on the front, I suppose. NEC Corporation, made in Taiwan. So there we go. And then there's the console itself. And if you're familiar with the US version, this might be new to you, which is the AV out. And this is a, what is that, a 6-pin DIN plug. So yeah, I'll come back to this in a minute. But this is basically outputting the PAL signal, and the cable goes in here. There's a game in here, which is Keith Courage in Alpha Zones, which is what mine came with, although the European version originally came with blazing lasers rather than Keith Courage, but you know, still nice to have, I suppose. And again, on the back here, just that way round, Turbografx logo. And the back bit comes off, and here's the interface on the back, which you plug the CD into, the CD drive turbo CD, I suppose, and then the power in, which is there. Now, there's a couple of issues with this. Now, you'll notice the rest of this box is empty, and you'll be thinking, well, you know, I mean, there is other stuff that should have come in this box anyway. So, like, there's obviously the baggies are long gone. The baggies that everything came in. The instructions are long gone. They're not there. There's a registration card that should come in here that's gone, and also there's a top insert for this box which is absent. But you may notice there's no space inside the box for the cabling to go, and I'll come on to that once I've put everything back in the box. I mean, it's not very exciting, but that's what it is. So, one thing I will just say, though, it strikes me that there should be sort of lights here for power and, well, maybe not pad, but it strikes me there should be a power light here where that is just like a painted dot. I don't know if the US Turbografx has a light there. I think it does, but the European one doesn't. It's just that red dot is literally just painted on there. So I'll just put that back and put this all neatly away. This incidentally came in the box but didn't originally. This is a European to UK adapter, and it is one of the cheap Chinese ones, I think, so I may get a more heavy duty adapter for that. So yeah, I'll just quickly box this up and then explain the next little bit. But what seems to have been the case is that the intention was to have that same box there that I've just opened in every country, and then basically have a different box of cabling that came with it depending on the country you were selling it in. So for instance, the UK and Germany would have all got the same box system with the same game, and you know, presumably maybe the instructions in multiple languages. I don't have a copy of the instructions to show you. I'm trying to untangle this as I'm going. I don't know how it's managed to get so tangled in the week that it's been sat around. But yeah, so that seems to have been the situation, is that was the intention. So these cables would have originally come in a separate box. If I can find a picture online of that box, I will put it up here in the corner. But if you look here, and I'll try and put that up to, yeah. So this is actually a European adapter, and you can tell by the plug that's on the end of it that this is a European adapter, and it says quite here, look, what is that? HES ACA 12 Turbografx European, Turbografx PAL rather. So yeah, that's the power pack there, and it's basically the same one as the US, I think, only that is obviously what is that one? That's 220, yeah. So the US one's obviously going to be 110 rather than 220, but it's basically the same thing with a European plug on the end. And this is it's a 5-pin DIN. I thought it was a 6. Oh well. Okay, so that's a 5-pin DIN plug, and it basically ends in that's composite video. That is not RGB, although I have heard that this does actually output an RGB signal. The console itself will output an RGB PAL signal. I can't find either I can't find a SCART cable for it. I have no idea where they might be. Just looking, I got, what did I get? I got some cables not long ago from Retro Gaming Cables, and Retro Gaming Cables do actually do cables for a Turbografx 16 that's been modified, but I have to contact them and find out if they do any for the European version, because a modified Turbografx 16 i.e. one that's been modified by somebody that actually physically mods the console themselves, is not necessarily going to be the same pinouts as the connector on this console. So I do have to I do have to check that out, because I would like to get an RGB cable for this machine. So that's basically it. This is what I've got. This is what I've got sitting here. Power pack, cables, composite. Yeah, it's not the greatest setup in the world, and this is why I say it's the worst of both worlds, really. Because if I had bought, if I had bought, say, a PC Engine core graphics, and modded it myself, got a proper RGB cable, a proper power supply. I have to buy a step-down converter, I suppose, but I could buy a power supply that used it, that it could use, and then I could buy loads of cheap games from Japan. Well, not cheap, but cheaper than the US equivalents. I could buy accessories from there that would be cheaper than the US equivalents. As it stands, what I have got is a European console that I have to put a British conversion plug on the end in order to just power the thing on. I have to use a composite signal, because I have no idea what the pinout is to buy an RGB cable for it. I have to buy the expensive games from the US. I have to buy the expensive accessories from the US, and I am possibly even playing the games a little slower, because or not slower necessarily, because it's still an NTSC game and it's still technically an NTSC console. It's just outputting in PAL. But what that basically means is it's likely dropping 10 frames a second between the game actually being played and the image appearing on screen. So I think it is genuinely the worst of both worlds. But aside from all that, it is still a nice thing to have in the collection. I'm just worried that I'm going to have to start buying games for this thing now. And when I say worried, what I mean is this. I have bought some games for this thing now. No, it's possibly not the most expensive or difficult system to find games for, but it's not the cheapest either. So Blazing Lasers I managed to get, which is the original pack-in game with this console. So likelihood is Blazing Lasers is going to be sharing that box, and Keith Courage is going to be going in a box somewhere. I would have liked to have had the box for Keith Courage, but oh well. I'm unlikely to stumble across one. And I've bought Alien Crush Pinball, which is nice. And these, like I say, these are Turbografx 16 games. There's no different. These are actually the US games, but they will play on this console, so that is fine. And this is where I have to decide to myself. No, these cost me, between them they cost me £50, so £25 each. There may be a couple of pound give or take, I can't remember. But basically these cost me £50 for these two games. Now they are originals, so they're not like knockoffs, but then who's going to knock off Blazing Lasers? I don't know. So it does look like I'm going to be starting another console collection that I'm pretty sure I didn't really want to start. But who knows? This might be all I buy. This might not. I do. Put it this way. If I come across a couple of the Bonk games, or I don't know, I can't think if there's any good racing games on the console. Nothing that springs to mind anyway. But I probably will pick stuff up as I find it. Whether I will actively go searching for stuff for this console, I don't know. I think the first thing I'm planning on doing is probably getting an RGB cable. So I'm gonna contact the Retro Gaming Cables, because they're based in the UK, and I trust them because the cables they've sent me that I've bought off them so far have been very good. So I'm going to contact them, see if I can get an RGB cable and how much it would cost, and if they know the pinouts of this, or just to see, because if I can get a really good picture on it, I might consider getting something. One thing I would like to invest in is a turbo tap as well. I'm going to have to import one from the States most likely, because I don't think any of the accessories were released here. I know there's an RF adapter, but I'm not interested in having that. I don't see the point in that. But I would like a turbo tap. I'd probably get at least one extra pad. And a handful of games maybe. I reckon 10 games and I'd probably be satisfied. So what to do with this in the future? If it's never supported by the Super CD, then obviously that's going to be a hassle, because that was what I was intending. I may well invest in an EverDrive for it, one of the Crix EverDrives, because if I genuinely can't find the games, I don't really want a console that I can't use. So I may well invest in one of the EverDrives for it. But yeah, so I will obviously keep everyone posted in the pickups videos. I'm going to stop fiddling with this thing now because it's distracting me. So yeah, I can't think of what else to say. I'm sort of really pleased that I've got it. I really genuinely am. I know that sounds, it sounds like I'm being disingenuous when I say that, but it's one of these things that makes me feel really ambivalent. I'm really pleased that I've got it. Even though I wasn't intending on buying one, it just sort of popped up at the right time when I had some money to spend. But I know collecting for this thing, I mean, like I say, even just finding the cables for it. I mean, if this power pack goes, trying to find a replacement, I think is going to be a bit of a nightmare. It's one of these things where you just wish you kind of hadn't. I mean, I'm glad, like I say, I'm glad I've got it, but I'm not sure whether I'm looking forward to the idea of collecting for this thing. Bearing in mind that pretty much everything I'm going to have to import, or pay through the nose for, or both. So yeah, I think an EverDrive might be an idea. Right, so that's the end. The cat's still asleep, so that's fine. So what did you think of everything I've said? In fact, I tell you what's a really good idea. Even though most people will never see this video, most people will stumble upon it by accident, maybe never watch it all the way through. What would be really nice is if you've got one of these, or you know any information about it, or you... basically anything I've highlighted in this video, if you can post that in the comments, because presumably anyone that's going to click on this video, even as a cursory glance, they might be looking for information on this console as well, and you could help them out, you could help me out. Let's community this up, because I imagine there's not many people that's got this specific model of console, so maybe we could buddy up, help each other out, things like that. That might be really nice for a change. And like I say, if you've got any tips, any helpful advice, where to get the cables from, where's good for buying the games, I don't know. Yeah, that would be really good. And yeah, so that's really about it. I might do a follow-up to this, I might not. It depends. It depends whether I manage to get any more stuff, or find out anything new, or maybe get some better cables. What I might do just to end the video is see if it actually is slower. or if it is actually dropping frames. So what I could do is see if I can record some gameplay footage from the console here using these 3 games that I own, and then put through an emulator that's been forced at 60 Hz the same games, because obviously I don't have a US Turbografx or a PC Engine, so I can't test it that way. But I can probably set an emulator to a constant 60 Hz, and that way see if it is actually dropping frames. I suspect it will be, because it's an NTSC conversion to a PAL signal. So in theory it should be dropping frames, but it might not actually play any slower, if you get what I mean. So I'll probably do that to end the video, and then I'll come back and there'll be an end card and loads of laughs. Right, so these have both been started at the same time. So this is, on the left hand side is the emulator fixed at 60 Hz, and on the right hand side is my Turbografx console, which is outputting a 50 Hz PAL signal, which I've had to upscale to HDMI because that's how my capture box works. Now, I also had to change the image to 16:9. Sometimes my capture hardware will work with 4:3, but not in this case. But unfortunately, it does seem that, yeah, this is running about, I'd say, almost exactly 17% slower. So no, it's not just dropping frames. What it actually is it seems to be the clock speed has actually been changed to a PAL one, which is really unfortunate. Kind of makes the case that, yeah, maybe it is the worst of both worlds. So if you look on the left there, the guy dies on the spikes here, and I don't know how many seconds we're talking later on before the one on the right dies. But that's easily about 20 seconds. So next on to Alien Crush. Yeah, there's a definite difference here. So even with the music, I mean, if I cancel out the right hand side, sorry, you can hear how the right hand side sounds really slow, and yeah, then if you listen to how it's meant to sound, if I fade the sound to the other side, see, that's how the music's meant to sound. So that is definite slowdown. And this isn't lag due to the fact that I've had to upscale it. That is easily a 17% drop off, which is what I'd expect for a NTSC to PAL conversion. So now on to Blazing Lasers. So the demos start at the same time, and there's already slowdown. I mean, amazing amounts of slowdown. Not slow down, but the gameplay has actually been slowed. Yeah. So it's actually really depressing now. I should have just stuck with emulators. Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, even what are we talking? Within 30 seconds, I think we're already at an 6 to 8 second drop off, and that is amazing. So yeah. Oh well, that's that. And the music is still slow. So yeah, hopefully that went well. Hopefully it is only dropping frames and not actually playing any slower. So yeah, this is the end of the video. If there's, like I say, if anyone's got any information on this console or you know, good places in Europe to buy the games or whatever, I don't know, any information you've got on the European Turbografx, you can put it here or put a link to it or something like that. Or even message it on Twitter, you know, I don't know. But anyway, here's some other videos that you may like. There's a subscribe thing down here, and hopefully I will see you in another video. Take care.